Hello all, welcome to my channel DevOps Mela. This is Rohit Singh and welcome to my new interview series. In this basically what will happen, I give lot of interviews for my practice. Okay. Now I have encountered the way they take interview has changed. Now no, they are not just focused on how you answer the life scenario. They also give you case studies, okay, and they give you a day or two to complete those case studies. So while giving interview, I got a bunch of case studies, okay, which I want to share with you guys. So these are from the interviews which I give. I have accumulated the case studies. I'll definitely not give you the company name for which company this case study was, but surely I'll be sharing the case study in this complete series. So I'll be coming up with this case studies very frequently now. Do let me know how did you like the case study and if there's any suggestion. Okay. So let's get started. The first case study which I have come across, the problem statement was the task is to set up multi-environment deployment pipeline. Okay, this was for microservice Java application, Java Spring Boot application to be very specific, running on Azure Kubernetes service. So basically they wanted us to set up a multi-environment deployment pipeline on Kubernetes, on AKS to be very specific. The requirement was whenever there is a new commit, the application needs to be deployed automatically on multiple AKS environment. So basically they have given three environment: dev, QA and prod. And whenever there is a commit, the changes needs to be triggered to all these three environments. So definitely multi-staging environment what we need to create. What was the recommended approach given? Get yourself a Azure DevOps project, get a repository created. Now it's not specified which repository. I can have a GitHub, GitLab, and whichever I want. Create and build a release pipeline. Create a service principal to connect to AKS cluster. Enable continuous integration and deployment triggers. Set up variable pipelines if any. Add approval gates for production deployment. Configure cluster monitoring as well as set up memory alerts. Now the skill set which was required for this case study is you need to have Azure DevOps knowledge, Git, Kubernetes, Docker. So this was the case study, guys. So again, reiterating, this case study talks about setting up CI/CD pipeline for Java Spring Boot application, which is also a microservice application. Okay, and this needs to be deployed on Azure Kubernetes. There are multiple environments which we need to set up: dev, QA, and prod. Post that, we need to enable cluster monitoring and we need to set up memory alerts. Okay, so there are some prerequisite which will go and focus before we start doing this case study. So what are the prerequisite? We need to have the infra created. Okay, now it's not given how the infra needs to be created, so we'll assume that the infra is already created. So we need to have a AKS cluster created. We need to have, as it was mentioned, dev, QA and prod. So we'll have three different namespace created through which we'll do the isolation. Post that, that is all about infrastructure. Coming to the pipeline, we'll have the project created first, Azure DevOps. We'll have the service connection created to connect to AKS cluster. We'll create a repository and we'll have a Docker image repository created. Basically, it's not mentioned like whether to use ACR, that's a Azure Container Registry, or we can use Docker Hub. It's not mentioned over here. So I'll stick with a Docker Hub wherein I'll be pushing my image. Okay. So first thing first, talking about AKS cluster. So my AKS cluster is up and running. Okay. While creating the cluster, I made sure that I enable monitoring feature. So if I go into my insight, I can quickly go and configure my monitoring feature because that was one of my prerequisite. Okay, I have a single node cluster. If I if I go to if I wish to show you, then I have a single node cluster and have not created any namespace. So let's do one thing. Let's connect to this cluster. Let's get the namespace created first, and then we can see what we can do further. Okay, I'll do use my cloud shell to connect. What's happening? Okay, let me create this cluster. Okay, in the meanwhile, we can take care of other prerequisites such as a project creation. So let's go back. And before that, let me show you the code, what exactly the code base is all about. So we do have, this is my Java Spring Boot application, very simple, straightforward application. Okay, we'll focus on this module wherein it is returning welcome to Spring Boot application. That's it. Okay, I do have my Docker file created, guys. Very simple Docker file, what we have right now. Okay, this is the image exposing, adding the target and the entry point. Very simple, straightforward Docker file, nothing fancy in this. Okay, and I do have my manifest file. I'll give you a walkthrough of this manifest file later. For now, let's focus on the project. So I do have a project. Okay, if you want, you guys can go and create a new project for yourself. Okay, I'll stick with my existing project. Okay, so I'll just have a new repository created. So basically what I'll do, I'll just name it as Java Spring Boot. Okay, and the application which was given to me, I'll just put the code in this particular repository. Let me quickly clone. This is on my local. So let's do a clone. Done. I have the okay, I'm inside the repository right now. So what I'll do, I'll get the things copied to this repository. Perfect. Now if you see, I do have my code base. I have my Docker file, I have my source file, I have my POM file, and I do have my manifest file. I'll give you a walkthrough what exactly I have written in this manifest file. So basically it has my deployment.yaml and service.yaml files. Okay. In the meanwhile, let's go and see the cluster. Okay, I do have the cluster thing ready. Let me connect to the cluster. Okay, this is the name of my resource group and this is the name of my cluster. Perfect. Let me quickly run the command kubectl get node. Okay, I got multiple nodes created. Okay, no problem. So let's go ahead and create the namespace. Let me see what are the namespaces available right now. kubectl get namespace. Then let me quickly create namespace dev prod, and I believe the third one was QA. Okay, so we do have 3 namespace created. We got dev, prod and QA. Perfect. So from the prerequisite, what all things we did, we have the cluster created, we have the namespace created, we do already have a project, and we have an Azure repos created. Service connection, I already have a service connection also. So let me just give you a walkthrough of the service connection. So I do have a service connection created which is connected to uh, which is connecting to my subscription. Okay. In case if you guys want to create a service connection from scratch, I do have a service connection creation end-to-end video in my Azure DevOps playlist. Please do check, and if you want, I'll put the service connection link in my description. Okay, please do check. So I'm not going ahead and creating a new service connection. It's already been covered in detail, so please do check. Okay, coming back to my repo, let me push my changes to my remote repository. Let's do a quick add, quick commit. Let's do initial commit, and let's do a quick push. Okay, pushed. Okay, now what else? We need to have a Docker image repository. So basically we need to have a registry created on Docker Hub. Already I'm logged into my Docker Hub. Now what I'll do, I'll get a registry created. I'll name this as case1 springboot. Okay. Similarly, I'll have case 2, case 3, case 4 this way. As we cover more cases, I'll have more such repository created. Okay. So all the prerequisite basically is done. We have everything in place. Now we need to get ourselves started and we need to start building CI/CD pipeline. Okay, we don't have my azure.yaml file. Okay, and now this is the time to introduce you to the manifest file. So this is my deployment.yaml file, guys. Very simple deployment file. Okay, wherein I'm creating a deployment app.deployment, creating one replica. The container is fetching image from this repository. So case-1 springboot. Let me confirm that. Case-1 springboot. Okay, perfect. Okay, and we are opening port 8080. On the other side, I'm creating a service type load balancer, port 8080, and the selector my app. A very simple deployment.yaml and service.yaml file. So it's all created under app.yaml. Okay. Now, what else? Okay. Going back and let's focus on creating the CI/CD pipeline. So let's go to pipeline. Let's have a new pipeline created. Select your repo, Java Spring Boot. I'll be sharing this repository with all the relevant files, guys. You will find the link in my description, so don't worry. So the first thing is we need to test this application. Then we need to build an image and push it to a remote. So what I'll do a show more, or I'll do starter pipeline. Okay, we'll add all the steps. Let me remove unnecessary things. Just take out this. Okay, so it's a Maven, Java Maven. So let me look for a Maven task. It will look for a pom.xml file. Okay, I'll have a package created. Testing will be done. Okay, this looks good. Let me go and add this. That's your Maven task. Post Maven, I want to do a build and push basically after this. So I'll add one more task. I'll add a Docker task over here. Build and push. Okay. Before that, we don't have service connection created to my Docker Hub. So let's go to new tab. So that needs to be created, a service connection to Docker Hub. How my build pipeline will push things to my Docker Hub. So let's have a new service connection. Let's look for Docker registry, Docker Hub, Docker IDs, DevOps mailer, password, email is okay, verify. Perfect. Docker Hub, just name this as grant access to all the pipelines, verify and save. Perfect. Let's come back. Let me just Docker Hub container repository. So it is let me remove the spaces. Okay, build and push is the command. It's looking for a Docker file. I do have my Docker file in the root of my repository. Context is okay. Tagging, so basically it will take the build ID. Perfect. Add pipeline metadata, it's not required. Add base image metadata, it's not required. If you guys want, you can select that. Okay, add it. So we have two tasks. This is Maven build and test, and this will basically build and push image to my remote repo. Okay, there's more tasks we need to add. Like we do have a manifest folder basically created over here, and this manifest folder has this file app.yaml file. This is a file I'll be using with my release pipeline. So I need this file to be copied to my drop location. So what I can do, I can simply use this two task. Okay, these are the two tasks. Copy from this manifest folder the content. So basically I just have a YAML file. So this YAML file will get copied and it will be placed into build artifact staging directory, and post that it will be published into a drop location from where I can access my files. Okay, so I have the build pipeline created. Let me quickly save it and run it. Okay, so while this is running, let's go to the cluster and enable monitoring, because even that was part of the case study. So let me do a configure monitoring. So under monitoring inside, you can go and configure monitoring. If you want to enable Grafana, you can go and do that. In my case, it's not required, so I'll just ignore it. And if you go back to the PPT, there was one more thing, set up memory alert for your cluster. So let's do these two things first. So onboarding in progress, you can wait while the onboarding is happening. Post that we can set up the alerts as well. Okay, in the meanwhile, the build is running. Perfect, the build looks good to me. Hopefully nothing fails. If nothing fails, we'll have an image created over here. Okay, and then we can start creating a release pipeline. Let's wait and watch. Okay, this onboarding is still taking time. Let me see what's happening right now. Okay, it's creating workspace and everything. Perfect. So build is successful. Spring Boot build. We can see the logs, Docker. So image is pushed. Let me verify this. Perfect. So we have 286. That's the build ID what we have used. And we have the image pushed successfully. Perfect. So the first part of the case study is done, wherein they wanted to create a microservice Java application build. Perfect. This is done. Next is we need to go and get it deployed. I can use YAML or I can use classic. So whichever you like. So let me go and create a new pipeline. And let's do an empty job for now. Let's name this as Java Maven release. Okay, let's select an artifact. So my artifact source is my build pipeline because I need to access my YAML file. Perfect. Let's name this stage as dev. Let's go and add the Kubernetes task. Let's look for Kubernetes over here. Deploy to Kubernetes. So use Kubernetes manifest file to deploy. So we do have a manifest file. So this is the right task basically. Okay, it is looking for a connection. So we do have a service connection created using ARM. Let's select this. Okay, namespace, dev namespace. I want to get this created. Strategy, not using any strategy as such. It's not mentioned in my case study. And I'll go and look for my manifest file. It should be there in my drop location. Okay, here we go. Okay, one challenge as mentioned in the PPT that whenever there's a new commit, application needs to be deployed. So whenever there is a build, a new image is getting created with the build ID tag. So whenever a new latest image gets created, we need to fetch that when we want to run the release. Okay, in that case, what will happen? We need to, if you go and look into my YAML file, it is fetching DevOps Mailer case-1 springboot. Okay, we cannot hard code any tags over here because the requirement is whenever there is a change, your build and release should run. So in this case, what we can do, we'll need to use some variables. I can simply achieve this by adding few variables. Your container registry name. So I'll be passing this additional variable, container registry, image repository, and the build ID. So we need to define this as a pipeline variable. So name of my container registry is DevOps Mailer. Let me pass that for you. And what else? Image repository is case-1 springboot. So this is what will happen, guys. Whenever my release pipeline will run, it will go and fetch the build ID, the latest one. Okay, so with this build ID, I'm not mentioning the build ID, it will go and get the latest build ID for you. Okay, done. We do have the dev environment ready. I don't think anything we missed. Now, even this dev namespace, what I'll do, I'll just have something like this created, namespace. Okay, and I'll get this defined in my as a variable. That will make more sense. Name it dev. Okay, let me change the scope to dev. Rest to scope, let it be as release. Now, why exactly I did? I can simply clone and I'll have my other environment created, QA, and I'll have one more environment created, prod. One thing, if you have noticed, in prod there is approval required. So you can go and add approver over here. I will add myself as approver for now, when that was mentioned in the case study. And things which I have to go and change is to just make this as QA, have to make this as prod. Perfect. So I have multi-stage release pipeline created, and I'll go and run this. In the meanwhile, we had enabled monitoring. Let's go to the cluster and see if we have the monitoring data coming in. There's nothing in my cluster, but still. Okay, while we are waiting for it, let's go and create a new release and let's get started. There was also one thing which was mentioned to enable continuous integration and continuous deployment. So let me just have this trigger enabled. So whenever there's a change, whenever there's a build, so whenever there's a commit, my build will automatically start. And if the build is successful, passing all the test and the build image and push is successful, then this release will also get created thanks to this trigger. Post that all pre-deployment triggers are enabled. What exactly it will do, as soon as the release gets created, this will start running the dev environment and QA. Only stopping will be at the prod because we have approval in place and this particular person needs to approve the pipeline. Okay, save it, run it. A lot of things we have done, so let's quickly run this. Release 1. Okay, it's in queue, all thanks to the trigger. So let's wait and watch. In the meanwhile, monitoring data, what's happening with the monitoring? Refresh. In the meanwhile, there's one more thing, alerts. Okay, see, we started getting monitoring data now. Node CPU utilization, node memory utilization, node count, active pod, all those data started popping up. Okay, while we are waiting for the release pipeline, and we have already seen the monitoring part, let's go and see set the alert. So there is a question in the case study to set up an alert. Now the question is to go and set up an alert, a memory alert, cluster memory. So by default, if you go and look into alerts, you have memory alert already set up. If you go and look into alert rules, so by default this gets set up. Okay, now on top of it, if you want to set more alerts, you can go and click under monitoring alerts. There's an option alert rule. You can go and select which alert do you want to set up. For example, you want to set up number of pods by phases, disk uses percentage. So let's select that. Okay, if the threshold value reaches above 80, what action do you want to take? So if you go into action group, you need to create an action group. An email needs to be triggered, some other function needs to be triggered, a webhook needs to be triggered, XYZ. So whatever action you want to take, you can go and take that action. Now if I want to get this created, I can simply name this alert as disk, okay, uses. Let me create a simple alert. The charges of alert is 0.10 USD per month. This way we'll have the alert created. Now if you go and look into alert rules, you should see one more alert over here. We have the disk uses. This way we can go and get the alert created. The memory was already created, so hence I have not created. In place of memory, I have created a disk one. Okay, now let's go and look into the pipeline. Oh, perfect. So we do have 2 of my environment deployed already successfully. Perfect. And the third environment prod is waiting for our approval. If I just simply go and approve it, so on this environment also I'll have my things getting deployed. Now how do we verify? I can quickly go to the cluster. Okay, so this is my dev. If I go and look into this public IP, 8080. Welcome to Spring Boot application. Similarly, if I want to look into my QA, I should have one more public. If I want to look into prod, if it is deployed by now, yeah, I do have. So all these three environments are being deployed successfully. If there is any change, now what was the last use case, what exactly it was looking for? Whenever there's a change, automatically things should happen. So how do we replicate this? I can simply go and let me pull first, because there are a lot of changes we did on my Git remote. Okay, if any change, then let me go into src. Java numeric controller, sorry. Okay, what I'll do, I'll make changes, a light slight change to application test. Okay, let's click add, git commit, updated homepage. Okay, perfect. That's okay. Git push. Now what are we expecting? The build and the release should run automatically. So if you see, my build would have triggered automatically. Now once the build is triggered, an image will be created. The image will be kept inside a new tag. You will see a new tag, and post that my release will run in all the three environment. So if you, conclusion, so it's a very good case study wherein you're dealing with microservice application, setting up cluster, setting up CI/CD pipeline. So this is the case study which I have got during the interview prep, which I was the interviews which I was giving. If there's any question, and if you like this video, please do share and subscribe, and put down your thoughts in the comment box. Okay, I'll be coming up with more such case studies in near future. Thank you very much, guys, and have a great day. Bye bye.